Hey guys, welcome to the Basement Workshop. If you've been watching my videos for the past couple of years, you've seen me restore a whole bunch of sets for other folks. One collector in particular. Last year I did a whole bunch of his Predicta sets. This year I did a whole variety of sets for him. A Crosley, a Dumont, an Emerson, Zenith Porthole, and on and on. Those all got picked up last week. Now I do have a few other sets for other clients I need to get done, but finally there's some relief and I can get back to some of my own sets. In particular, I recently started a new adventure restoring a couple color roundy sets, but tonight I want to have a little fun, take a little break and restore, well, another TV, but this is one that's I'm on very familiar territory with, and I think will be a little bit of fun, and that is this guy. I picked up this empty bakelite cabinet at the Antique Radio Club of Illinois Radio Fest a few months ago, because well, one, I like the styling a lot. They're kind of rare or uncommon to have the control door intact. It's bakelite 12-inch tabletop set. It's empty though, but at the early television museum in Ohio, I think at one of their swap meets a year or two ago, I got the chassis for this set just for parts to scavenge parts from. And that's what's in there right now. It has no picture tube and no tuner. And I don't remember what else I might have scavenged out of it, or has been scavenged out of it. But let's see if we can get it running tonight. I think it's a 20Z1, 20X1. It's in that family. I've worked on a number of them. I have spare parts. We can replace whatever we need to. And one of you mentioned, hey, maybe run it without a tuner. That's something it's come up a few times over the years. Folks have asked me about that, and I poo-pooed it as being a purist. No, you gotta get an RF modulator and feed a signal through the antenna and get the tuner, get everything working like it was intended to when it was originally made. However, I've lightened up a little bit, because I cannot deny that if you bypass the tuner and the IF and inject a composite video signal of proper polarity and amplitude into the video amp, you get an outstanding picture. Basically, you're making it into a video monitor. So maybe that's what we'll do with this. Depends. I don't even remember what I did with the tuner, but it doesn't have a tuner right now. So let's get started by pulling this chassis out and see what kind of condition it's in and go from there. To be honest, I do kind of miss working on Admirals. Why? Well, if you go way back to when I started making YouTube videos, I started posting online even before I made YouTube videos, I happened to pick up a lot of Admiral TVs. Maybe because they were made near where I live, I don't know, but they seem to be, especially in the past, really plentiful around here, and they were one of the top manufacturers. For whatever reason, I ended up with a lot of them, so I did a lot of videos, I did a lot of projects. I cut my teeth restoring vintage TVs on Admirals, and Motorola's to a lesser extent. So, very familiar to me. Some of these, I got to the point where I could pretty much do them without looking at the service info. So we do have the speaker tucked up here, which is good. Let's leave that alone for now. There's a transformer built into it. It plugs into the chassis. That'd be a little tricky to work around if we didn't have that. So we definitely have the flyback high voltage box. We got the yoke focus coil. This little gimbal assembly would go out through the back of the cabinet. That's how you would do the centering on it. This, like some antique radios, you may have seen, the rectifier tube plugs into the top of the transformer. Now, if you watch my beginner series on restoring early black and white TVs, I also did an Admiral, and that was a split chassis. This is from around the same vintage, but this is a little bit lower end, and they crammed it all into one chassis. And that's part of how they did it, is they plugged the rectifier right on top of the transformer. And it only has one transformer, and they use some power resistors to divide the voltage down for the other voltages they need. But there are also a number of design compromises. Oh, interesting. There's a plug on the back of this for a pilot light, so this chassis must have come from a console set or a combo set or something like that. Let me come back to haunt this a little bit. So let's get this out of here. We'll use a test CRT for now. I'll have to scrounge up a 12-inch picture tube. It's missing the back. Now I do have another one of these. Got from a buddy of mine a few years back. He surprised me with it, but it's in much rougher shape. I don't think I've ever actually pulled the chassis on it. It's in my storage unit. I know it's rusty. I know the control door is busted or missing, but I think it has the back, so maybe we'll combine stuff from the two of them eventually. Okay, from the top side, obviously all the tubes are gone, or well, there's one left. Original electrolytics are here. One control for some reason is shorty. It's probably a replacement. There is an opening in the front of the set for 4 controls, but we got a little stubby one here, and the tuner's gone. Alright, let's get to the important stuff. What's this going on right here? So another space-saving measure they did is they mounted one of the electrolytics underneath. Oh yeah, that's from the tuner. That was a power resistor. That's toast. Ah, of course. Not surprising at all. The control that's been replaced is the focus rheostat. Who knows if that's even the right value. But this works with this. It's also part of the power supply. I say of course because it's got 2-watt control or something. It's the most prone control to go out in these. I probably have scavenged an original somewhere around here if I go digging through my parts. What I'm trying to do right now is see, is there anything else missing? Or is there any hacked up repairs? Are there any? There's another common problem down here is there's a width and a linearity coil. These can get chewed up, mangled, burned open. They look okay. There were some repairs way back in the day. That's a replacement cap, replacement cap, replacement cap. But aside from the cobwebs, replacement cap, it looks like it's all here other than the tuner being snipped out. So, full steam ahead. I'll get some service info. I'll get my Wallace Telliade out, nice big schematic. And might be helpful if I can grab Sam's, which will show me a photograph of underneath here. But it is one of, I mean, if you're gonna, as far as beginner sets go, this is a very conventional, straightforward design. I also got to scare up a complete set of tubes, but they're all common tubes. Oh, where to start? Let's start with the schematic. Yep. Found it in the Wallace Telliade chassis 20Z1. There's a X1, Y1, Z1, all very, very similar. There's about as straightforward and simple a magnetically deflected set you will find that actually still has decent performance. So this would be our missing tuner. We can skip that. So if you want to inject a signal, if it was IF modulated, we could inject it right here, but more likely we will be injecting over here. Now this is not a split carrier set like you see me work on so often. Another minimizing design is it's an intercarrier, so both sound and video go through the IF, and they pick the sound off to this little dinky 2 picofarad cap from the plate of the video amp that goes to the sound IF. So super common tubes, 6AU66, 6AL5s, 6SN7s, 6AS5 sound output. Some 12AU7s, again more miniaturization, use 12AU7s instead of 6SN7s. Vertical integrator, vertical oscillator. They actually use 1/2 of a 12AU7 for the vertical output tube. Vertical output transformer yoke. Very dead simple power supply. Primary, 2 secondary, or 3 secondaries. One 6.3 for all the tubes, 5 volt for the 5U4 and then the 5U4 because they're B plus, just a single B plus capacitor, filter choke capacitor. There's our B plus. That's it. Horizontal 6SN7, 6BG6, 6W4 damper, and one kind of oddity, instead of a 1B3 it has a 1X2, which is a little miniature, like a 9-pin sized high voltage rectifier. And that's it. That is it. So we got a mangled focus control circuit. Let's see if we can clean that up first to make sure that rheostat's good, and dig up a power resistor, because without that the set is not going to work. Because that, there we go, it's in the power supply. Now, because I restored a bunch of these over the years, I'm pretty darn sure I've got some 750 ohm power resistors handy. So that control goes in parallel with the focus coil, and this goes off, so this kind of shunts power away from it depending on how it's positioned. Oh yeah, so another way that, so I said that they need multiple voltages out of the power supply. So a few ways to do that. You can have two power transformers like the older versions of this set use, their higher end versions, where it's just two separate power transformers, power supplies for a higher B plus, lower B plus. Or like RCA did on the early sets, have huge power resistors and a big voltage divider string. Or you do a stacked B plus, which became far more popular in the 50s, where you use the Class A audio output transformer as a voltage divider. So the cathode on this does not go to ground. So the plates go into basically B plus, and the cathode, so this is a fixed bias. It's basically, it's a constant current source, and they have the cathode going through a power resistor, 820 ohms, and it actually feeds other circuits. So there's 135 volts on the cathode of the audio output transformer. So that is how you get the lower voltage, because very typically your IF runs on about half the voltage that the deflection circuits run on. Got that? Alright, good. Let's get going. I'm sure you'll be shocked to learn that this power resistor is open. So replace that with a new guy right here. I'll just clean up a bit of the wiring. So it all looked white and chalky at first, but a little wiped down with denatured alcohol brought out the colors. This is early plastic wiring. I guess this was probably stored in a humid environment or something, and it oxidized a bit. Alright, so where do we go from here? Well, yeah, I think we're going to need to replace a whole bunch of caps and double check things. But I figure sooner than later, let's get some tubes in this and power it up without a rectifier to make sure that this is actually restorable before we go too crazy. And it just occurred to me, I think I did a while ago, but I can't tell for sure. So let's take a look inside this box. What I meant to say was, it just occurred to me that I haven't shown you guys what's in here. It's a little jammed on. Yeah, there's no screw in there. It just got bent. Gotta take this off anyway so I can get a cheater cord in there to power it up. What is this hung up on? Right, there we go. Well, actually, the tubes are all still in there. Yeah, that looks fine. Just disgustingly filthy. This fuse might be bad. Sure looks cloudy inside. No, actually, it's continuity. Alright, so 6BG6, and there's that little dinky high voltage rectifier I was talking about. Boy, this is dirty. Alright, so cheater cord goes in there. I'm going to go hunt up some tubes. I know I have them all, it's just a matter of finding them all. I think I dug up all the tubes I need. Now, it may seem odd for me to be cleaning things at this point. However, these Admiral chassis have all the tube designators stamped on them. So 5U4G on transformer, 6AU6, 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 6AU6. 1287. Since I don't have tube chart handy, I need to clean these so I know what to put where. Yeah, it is mostly 6AU6s. We need 5 of those. 2 6SN7s, 2 12SN7s, 1 6SN7 here is shock mounted. That's a horizontal oscillator. It's mounted in a little spring-loaded socket to reduce microphonic vibrations. Boy, man. I don't know what this gunk is on here, but boy, just a little Windex and paper towel, and man, it is gleaming. I think it's just sat around for a whole long time. Neglected. Not for long. Not for long. Starting to grow on me. Got high hopes for this project. Oh yeah, look at that. It's so disgusting. Alrighty, cleaned up the 3 tubes that were still on the chassis and populated the rest of the tube sockets. Got it plugged into my Variac. Here we go. Excellent, excellent. Isn't that pretty? Glow, glow, glow. A little bit of buzz from the power transformer. Not crazy about that. But everything else looks good. So, okay. Now we really got to talk about what's next. Given the state of things underneath the chassis, I don't think there's much point in popping in a 5U4 and trying to reform caps, not without doing some more work underneath. So what I want to go after, a couple things. One, recap the main power supply. This is pretty easy. There are only 2 twist lock electrolytics, one here and one on the front. It is not difficult at all. I've done it before to just tack in new caps down below and leave these in place and disconnect them. And I also think it's worth rebuilding the horizontal circuitry, which would be replacing about half a dozen caps down here. Then we can try another power up. Change of plans. After reviewing things down below, it didn't look as bad as I initially thought, so let's go for it. 5U4, see if we can reform these caps. So, starting out with volts, let's go up to about 10. So, again, you know the drill. Keep increasing these. I would expect something to happen at about 100 volts. Well, good news and bad news. Good news is I got up to full line voltage and nothing bad has happened. And we do seem to have some B plus voltage, like on the fuse and the high voltage box. I got 265 or so, but there is no high voltage, and the set is not drawing as much current as it should. I don't think it's only drawing 0.9 amps. That's like 100 watts. That just does not seem right. So I think we got problems with the power supply. I can tip the set on its side and poke around a little bit. Yeah, for sure something's up, because power resistor is ice cold. So is this one. So power is not getting through the set like it should be. Here's the problem. Field coil speaker. That is the filter choke. So at this point I do have around 400 volts, but there is no power going to the rest of the set. So I got 2 choices. One, plug this in. We got to resume doing a slow power up. or plug a power resistor in to substitute for it. I'll see what I have handy. The reason I might want to do that is if there is a dead short somewhere, I don't want to burn out this field coil. Yeah, that made a big difference. What I'm doing now is I've got a voltmeter clipped to the fuse in the high voltage box, and I'm monitoring that while I slowly increase the voltage, and I can see that definitely the caps are reforming, and it's taken a while, so I'm going a lot slower now. So I increase the variac a little bit, and I watch this, and eventually it stops going up, and at that point I increase the variac a little bit. This is a good sign. If that number was not increasing, that would mean the caps were not forming up. Well, just as I predicted, got it to about 105 volts in, corresponding to about 287 on the positive voltage going to the flyback circuit, and what do you know? I threw a fluorescent bulb inside the high voltage box to detect the presence of high voltage, but we can also see the CRT is glowing, and we have a raster, meaning we have both horizontal and vertical deflections. So, oh, we have a crackle out of the speaker. So even as horrible as everything looks, there we go, nice buzz. As horrible as everything looks, it's coming back to life. And those caps seem to form up quite well. In other words, the voltage is holding really stable. And we're going quite a bit more, so I just bumped it up. Now we're at about 110, 113. So earlier on, when I was just putting 10, 20, 30 volts into the set, it would take 10 minutes or so for the voltage to level out. Now it's almost instant, or just it takes a minute or two. About 115 or so, right about within the normal operating parameters of the set. And yeah. And there's a nice smell of hot electronics too. So what say we try to feed a signal in? Now, of course, we don't have a tuner, so I'll have to put this out on its side and inject it using my pattern generator. I'm injecting a signal through a 0.1 microfarad cap right into the grid of the video amp, going through my TVA 92, and yeah, we're getting something coming through. I'm changing the polarity and the level. With this you can go positive or negative polarity and change the amount. That looks like it's probably right. I'm changing the different test patterns now. But it's clearly not locking. This is horizontal hold, going from one extreme to the other. Looks like it's kind of trying to lock. And this is vertical hold. So I'm going to play around with the horizontal lock coil and see if I can get it to lock in. That would be this guy right here, which is this guy, which is that end right there. Yeah, backed out that slug a bit, tweaked this slug a bit. There's one on either end, and we got horizontal lock. Vertical scrolling a bit, and get that to lock. Looks terrible, right? Well, a couple of things going on. One, I don't know that I'm injecting the right kind of signal, so let's change polarity, level. Yeah, actually that's probably about right. So why is it not going down to the bottom of the screen? That is a really, really common issue, symptomatic of that cap being bad. the cathode bypass cap on the vertical output tube. If it's leaky, it tends to make the picture not come all the way down the screen. So let's replace that guy. Well, it's a little bit better, and that's with maximum height. So we still got some more work to do on the vertical circuit. But hey, it's synchronizing. We got video going through. Fantastic start. I don't doubt as I go through and replace more of these old paper caps, it's going to keep improving and improving. I finished recapping the horizontal and the vertical circuits, and we've actually got a pretty respectable crosshatch pattern now. So where do we go from here? Well, I still got to scare up a tuner. If I don't, it'd be cool if I could just plug a 1-volt peak-to-peak composite video signal into the set, as I was talking about earlier, and use it as a monitor, but I don't think it's going to be quite enough amplitude to drive the video amp. So I'm talking about feeding a signal right in there, point V. Now I know others have done this before, so I'm going to do a little research and see about making an amp. Meanwhile, I need to scare up a 12-inch picture tube, of course. Can't use this little dinky Tuss CRT. And I got a bakelite cabinet to clean up, so why don't we work on those two things for now. Well, spoke too soon. I went poking around my spare part bins, and looky what I found, an Admiral tuner. And it sure looks like everything's going to line up with the mounting holes. I just got to suss out the connections and figure out where they go. I know that's the RF out, at least I think it is. But I got to figure out the others, which would be the filament supply, AGC, and B+. And of course, the twin lead is our antenna input. This is turning into a bit of a Lazarus project, isn't it? So tuner has been mounted as best I could. I traced out the wiring and connected the filament and various voltages where they're supposed to go. Rigged up the antenna lead, feeding in from my VG91. And I put a channel knob on it. It has a nice satisfying clunk to it. Alright. And I think we gotta turn this on. Here we go. Dim the lights so we can see what the heck's going on. It's one thing you radio guys will have to get used to or start working on TVs is that I constantly have to turn the lights on and off because it's hard to see what's going on with bright bench lights fired up. Alright, excellent. We have our raster back. And I say excellent because I'm seeing some kind of staticky stuff which would indicate that the tuner's doing something. As is that. So I'm rotating it around. I'm broadcasting or modulating on channel 4. Let's see, output is up all the way. We actually I know why it's not coming in. If it's working at all, I clipped out the capacitor that couples the IF to the video amp because I was injecting my own signal. So hang on. Let's reinstall that cap. Alright, here we go again. With the capacitor in place, should make a bit of a difference. Yeah, that's more like it now. We definitely have some static crashing through. And oh yeah, the tuner is doing something. Ooh, ow. Let's turn that gain down. Just fine tuning a bit. Alright. I think we're in business. think we are in business. So, yeah, I've noticed that happen a few times where suddenly the brightness jumps up. Or if there's an issue with a mica cap or a resistor somewhere that when it warms up is getting a little wonky, or one of these tubes for that matter. But anyways, yeah, hey, this is fantastic. This is all going much better than I thought it would. So, now let's try to find a full-size picture tube. Found this old rebuilt 12-inch CRT lying around the workshop, and when I first powered it up it irked a little bit in the neck. Sorry I didn't catch it on record the video, but I kept playing around with it and got to this point where it looks kind of respectable, except that I can't get the background. It's kind of washed out, like there's a haze around all of it. If I go to a more complex test pattern, like we should be seeing stripes here. Ooh, and it just really went wonky. Well, let's take a look at the neck. It's glowing a bit blue. So I think the CRT might be a little gassy. Oop, and there goes a little spark. So yeah, I'm thinking a bit of air has gotten inside of this guy, because like I said, it is a rebuild, but it didn't do the greatest job. Or maybe it's just had its day. And yeah, kind of fitting for this project though, I think. But I think I see one other used 12LP4 floating around, so let's give that one a try, and maybe it's just time to retire this guy. Now, that would be kind of fun to run it until it dies. But yeah, when you see purple glow, bluish glow down the middle of the electron gun net, that's not a good sign. The gun on this one looks super baked, but let's give it a try nonetheless. I'm just trying to find one that will produce a sort of okay image. I haven't adjusted the ion trap magnet yet, so let's get the brightness up all the way and play around that ion trap magnet. Oh, there it goes. The brightness up all the way. Of course, you'd never watch it like that. And check out the. This is looking better than the last one, that's for sure. Just in a fine tuning. Alright, alright. Got a little wavering at the top. I need to adjust the synchro guide horizontal coil a bit. But, yeah. Let's try a different pattern. Go back to the good old crosshatch. Alright. I think the trap is quite perfect. It's a little distorted in the corners. So you want it to be as bright as you can with no shadows. And we've got our little joystick thingy here. We'll play around with that. You can see the effect that has. Well, it moves the picture all around. You see I get these shadows up here. It's when your electron beam is hitting the inside of the glass because you're way off target. Something like that. I see it's more focused over there than over there. So yeah, I mean, these magnetics interact with each other. Got the focus coil and the ion trap magnet and the yoke all fighting each other. Alright, I can work with that. Let's take a look at the cabinet now. Thanks to my habit of saving every scrap of a chassis when I part it out, I found a few odds and ends that were missing. For example, this piece of phenolic material that keeps the tuning shaft centered in the opening. And this guy, which is a metal bracket, keeps the CRT from popping forward. The original rubber was all rotted away, so I cut a new piece. Get that on there. Then there's a cloth band that goes around the whole thing with a bracket on either side. It keeps the CRT held down securely. Let's see, dug up some tube shields. There's a little bit of cardboard I need to install. It's a dust guard for this piston cap. I wish I had remembered to install that before I put the tuner in, but I can just loosen it up. I think I dropped down a bit and slip that in. Power cord. The original one was rotted. Cut it off. I'll pop this guy off and install a new one. Clean this up a bit with some CLR as well. And I think that just about does it. The only thing I haven't scrounged up yet is a better focus control than that. But even if we have to leave it that way, I can live with it. It's not something you adjust very often. And with the screwdriver, one can easily get in there. These are normally hidden behind the control door, so they're hardly crucial knobs. Or control. Speaking of knobs, thinking ahead there, stumbling over my words, I have plenty of spare Admiral knobs of this vintage, so we need 4 of them for outer and inner, one on either side. Cabinet's not too bad. It's a little dusty, some scuffs here and there. What am I going to use on it? A good old Novus number 2 plastic polish. Turns out there are only 2 screws left out of the 6 that hold on the front bezel. Remove that so I can polish this up better. This side must have gotten more UV sun exposure than this side because it's a little dull here. This is after polishing. See where it was protected, where it was exposed. Not too bad though, and in general it's polishing up very nicely. It's got a ding and a chip here and there. We have a chunk missing there. The worst though is the scratches, scuffs on the plastic bezel, but it can be wet sanded out, so I'm not too concerned about that. Back to the schematic for a bit. Even though I now have a working tuner and IF, I don't want to dismiss the idea of doing a direct injection, especially because I just reviewed Phil Nelson's article again. Now he has a somewhat different model. It has dual chassis and uses a 6AC7 for the video amp, but it's just a single stage, just like this set. And he was able to inject just a standard 1 volt peak-to-peak composite video on the grid of the 6AC7, and that gave him sufficient drive to produce an outstanding picture. We have a 6AU6 in this case, which I don't think is quite as good as a 6AC7, but we can try it. Especially because I just realized that even though I've been up to now using the TVA92 variable output, which can go up to 300 volts peak to peak, I'm on the 3 volt peak to peak range, and I've got it set for about 1/3 of the rotation, which means I'm using about 1 volt peak to peak while I've been trying this set out. So what I'm going to switch to using, instead of using that variable gain output, I'm going to use the standard video output, which is 1 volt peak to peak, and go right to the grid of that. The reason I'm a little skeptical is usually, depending on your brightness and contrast settings or level you want, you're going to need 30 to 40, 50 volts peak to peak out. And for a little 6AU6 to go from, say, give you a gain of 40 from DC to 4 megahertz or so, seems like asking a lot, but we can certainly give it a try. Here's the article I'm referring to. I'll put a link in the description. I've seen plenty of other folks do this, but they threw in a video amp to give it a little bit more oomph. But all he's doing is taking left and right audio and combining them with 10K resistors to make mono. I'm going right to the one end of the leg, one outer leg of the volume control, and just going composite video directly to the video amp, and that's it. And he got outstanding results. He does a little comparison later on, which is quite startling. So here is going through the tuner and the IF. If you're not familiar with this, the key thing is this and this that we want to look at. This is supposed to be able to see lines just like we can up here, and where you can see lines give you an estimate of your resolution. So 150 lines, 200 lines, 250, 325, and obviously it's not very good. Similarly, this is an estimation of your bandwidth. So with his setup, it looks like he's only got about a 2 megahertz bandwidth, and he admits that perhaps if he aligned the IF, he could have gotten better results. But here it is with direct injection. So I cannot deny this. Yes, being a bit of a purist, it's cheating, but man, you get outstanding results. Well, it's one way to find out. Let's try some direct video injection. So now I'm using the standard video out 1 volt peak-to-peak composite through a 0.1 microfarad decoupling cap to the grid of the video amp. So the question is it the right amplitude and is it the right polarity? Well, turns out the answer is yes. Yes, back off the brightness a little, just the contrast a little. Yeah. I noticed on some patterns, though, like the circle, it gets a bit distorted at crossover points. And it gets worse if the higher up I put the contrast. Now, there is a horizontal lock frequency coil. I have not gone through the official procedure to adjust that. That should help a bit with that. What I really want to know is what is the bandwidth like. So here's the pattern for that. Okay, that is outstanding. Because this bar here, if you can see stripes in that bar, and I can, that means you have 4.5 megahertz bandwidth. And they are quite distinct. So there are sections of bars here, and I can turn them on and off selectively. So this is the 4.5 megahertz section. This is the 4 megahertz section. 3.5, 3, and so on. So if we can distinguish distinct, sharply defined bars all the way from the left all the way to the right, that means we've got full video bandwidth basically from DC to 4.5 megahertz, which is a good 1 megahertz or so more than you're going to get out of a standard more modern set, because they bandwidth limited it intentionally for color. But this was designed pre-color so they could use the full bandwidth just for the picture information, no color information. So now the trick is, if you want to do this and you want to get that full bandwidth, you need a video source that can supply full bandwidth. If you hook this up to the over-the-air converter box, or to an over-the-air converter box like I will in a moment, that has color info. That's bandwidth limited. It'll look good, but we're also going to see some color information creeping into the video. And it's not making full use of the bandwidth. To do that, we need a monochrome video source that uses full bandwidth. A little bit trickier to dig one of those up. Now I'm feeding in a cheapo over-the-air converter box I got way back in 2009. Composite RCA video out, hooked up just like the VG91, clipped to the set. Does it work? Yeah, it does. And look how crisp that text is. Still having some annoying issues with the brightness level jumping around. I don't know if that's the CRT or something up with the TV. It's not perfect though. The set does not have DC restoration. And although does it matter when you're feeding composite signal? Well, all I can say is when we change, say, between commercials and programming, I'm having to adjust the brightness or contrast level because it looks too dark in some scenes. Too washed out. I'll play around with it. Now let's bring up some color programming. Here's some cartoons. That's a good way to illustrate it. Look inside that tuba, or the floor, or the wall. See all these dot patterns? That's the color info. Each distinct color will have a somewhat different pattern to it. I'm back to using the antenna for the input, reinstalled shields, and I'm trying to figure out what's been going on with this picture tube getting dimmer. But as I just said that, this just went completely blank, didn't it? Well, I found a couple things. One, this tube can get a little flaky in its socket. The other is the tuner is really dirty. So I think between those, this doesn't surprise me because remember how filthy the set was and there weren't any tubes in the sockets, so those pins got pretty darn dirty. I've been spraying deox into the sockets to try to alleviate that. But see what happens with this tube sometimes is this, and you lose, or the image gets really faint. You wiggle it a little bit, and sometimes you get that, which is sort of in between, and then that's how it should be good. So we definitely got to muck around with that, but I think that might be it. I'm going to leave this running for a while. But notice again now that we're back to the antenna input, we don't have any definition, not only at 4.5, we don't have definition at 4, 3.5, and 3 we're just starting to get it. So there's your big difference between direct injection and going through the tuner. Could I get this better with an alignment? Yeah, a little bit, but by design, it doesn't really get out quite this far. This is sort of a medium end set for Admiral. So the way they design the IF, you don't get a full 4.5. But even so, for the set as designed, that's pretty darn good. Well, I suppose since we've gone this far, I'll take a whack at wet sanding the front. For sure those scratches I can get out. It says blemish, I'm not so sure about. I think it's just on the surface. Kind of deep though. Something must have ground into this thing. It's a little melty here too. Oh, really melty. Man, what the heck happened to this set over the years? So, basically I want to resurface the whole thing. Now, I'll warn you, if you ever do one of these, don't just sand where the scratch is and make a depression, because then it's going to be optically distorted when you're looking through it. If you're going to sand it, sand the entire surface down so it's all even thickness. Well, it's not perfect, but it's a lot better than it was. I'd guesstimate I took maybe 0.5 millimeter off the surface, went all the way down to 400 grit, up to 3,000 with wet sanding, then Novus number 2 with a little bonnet attachment on a drill. A few blemishes are just too deep down. There's one right there. Something to keep in mind too with this. This is a 75-year-old piece of plastic. And if you get too aggressive, you can introduce stress cracks. So it's a lot better than it was. I'm happy with it. We'll go with that. In another news, knobs. Yes, we have knobs, and not just any knobs. I believe all of these are new old stock OEM replacement knobs from way back when. Or if not OEM, a third party that made darn near identical reproductions. That's why they're so pretty looking and never been used. The only downside, and it's pretty minor, is that 3 are one shade of brown and this one's a little bit darker. It's typical of Admirals from the 40s, early 50s. These knobs came in 2 shades, or 3. I've seen black too, so chocolate brown, dark chocolate, and black. So maybe someday I'll get a perfect match set, but I'm pretty darn happy with having these. So I was about to say put it back together, but it's not really back together. It's let's cobble this thing together. The only thing that's missing now, I guess, is a back. I do have a few I've scavenged. I'll dig through them. Just maybe I've got a back. I dug out some period metal Admiral backs. They used these both on wood and bakelite models. I chose ones that had an opening here for that centering joystick thingy. Too wide. Close. Let's see about this guy. Not quite. Sticks out a bit on the bottom. Top 2 holes kind of line up. But there's nothing here to mount it to. So, yeah, that's a bust. But that is what the Admiral backs look like. You imagine it's a little tough to fabricate one like that. So they do protrude a bit. They're not flush with the back. Here it is all back together. Quite happy with the way it looks. Nice new knobs, all the sheen bakelite. Performance, it's okay. It's not fantastic. 2 reasons, I think. Well, probably 3. 1, I maybe could benefit from an alignment a little bit or direct video injection. 2, I think the CRT is a little If I keep turning the brightness up, we really lose definition. It's tough to get a good balance of contrast and brightness. But the final thing that's been driving me nuts is, see, it looks a little grainy. If I reach around the back and play with the RF input, it's a little flaky. I've tried tightening things down, retightening the coax connector and the balun and stuff, but that's another reason to potentially go with direct video injection. You eliminate RF interference. But all that aside, for one night busting my hump, I think we did pretty good. So that's going to be it for now. I guess we can call this a Friday night restoration. It's not what I had intended to do, but that's how it ended up going, I guess. When I started this project, I had no idea if I was even going to get this thing to work or not. But in the end, yeah, it worked out pretty well. That's going to be it for now. Thanks for watching. We will circle back to a whole series on different ways to feed a signal into the side and where you can get a signal from, and different ways to convert it, modulate it, and such. And when I have a bit more time, I'll fine-tune this set a bit more. Thanks for watching.
Oh, it says, fearless leader is watching. Yes, the Pennsylvanian satellite was now hovering high over Boris's head, keeping him under constant surveillance. Just kidding. Fearless leader